check this out, Joe. This is me, DMC, and the place to be. And the place for you to always be at all times. 250,000 days, a million plus billion in a year is Nerd Enthusiast. Nerd Enthusiast is the place to be. Take it from me, I know a lot about places to be. And while you're there, like and subscribe. Ruh.
We're getting into the next segment of the show right now, which is, of course, horror games. We're going to talk about horror games, and we're going to call them like horror-like games or scary games. Some games that may have horror elements to them. They may not traditionally be called a horror game, but they may have like some horror themes to them. So Wes is going to talk about some of the ones that he enjoys. I'm going to talk about some that I enjoy, and then we're going to talk about some of the lesser-known horror games. So let's get into it first, Wes. What are some of your favorite horror or horror-like games?
Oh man, I got a nice list going. I of course I got to start with like Resident Evil. Like I was gonna say the granddaddy of them all, but there was something that predates Resident Evil. So, but the Resident Evil series in general is on the top of my list. On the top of my list.
Certainly up there with me, especially after remake two that came out. Oh man, it was so good.
The remake of 2 and 3 were phenomenal. They were so good. You know, 3 was a little bit more on the action side, but it still had that survival horror theme.
But I mean, even the game itself, like the original, was kind of like that too. So it was like, what are they really gonna do? Like 2 was just such a better game from the get-go. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, playing both players, but it was to this day, like when I could pop in 3 and just run through it and just have a good time. But 2 was like, you know, Resident Evil 1 was fantastic, and then they came out with 2, and they just kind of turned up the intensity 100 times. Everything about it was so much better than the first one.
Got those little lickers crawling on the ceilings and stuff.
You had the lickers, and then you had the introduction of Mr. X, you know, walking around. Oh, so good. And 3, you had Nemesis, who chased you through multiple rooms. Oh, so good, so good. And then we had 4. 4 was a reinvention of the Resident Evil. It took me a minute to warm up to it. I still loved it, but I missed the zombies.
You want to know something awful?
Don't tell me you didn't play it.
I never played 4.
Oh no! Don't judge them, folks.
I probably own that game like 5 different times, Wes. I own 2 copies on GameCube. I own 1 on Wii. I probably own a few of them digitally. And I don't know how I never got around to playing 4. I couldn't explain it to you.
4 was good. 4 was really good, man. They changed the camera. It was over the shoulder. You know, it got away from the zombies, like I said. So it took me a minute to warm up to it because coming from 0, 1, 2, and 3, where you still had zombies, and now you're fighting something else. So it was fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but it just took me a minute because I wanted zombies. You know, and then we had 5, and then at that point, Resident Evil tried to get a little bit more toward the action-y side as opposed to the horror. So it had a little shift. So, but yes, no, the Resident Evil series is top of my list. But then right below that, we got Silent Hill.
Silent Hill is another series I'm not familiar with.
What? Oh my goodness.
Horror games I'm hit and miss on. I have some that I played and some that I haven't. I've never touched the Silent Hill series, but I would say in the past year I picked up, I think it was Silent Hill 2 on original Xbox. So I do own 1 Silent Hill game. I don't want to play the second one after I never played the first one. So I need to go back and get the first one and then play that, and then I'll play the second one.
Oh, the first one was great. First one was so good. The second one, again, it just took it to a whole nother level. Because the first one came out on PlayStation, and then the second one came out on PlayStation 2. So the graphics were better, the effects were better, the mood was. You had Pyramid Head, the introduction of Pyramid Head. in the second one.
Yeah, I
And you
need
had
to go back and play them. Do you think it's worth me playing the first one first and then
Nope.
playing the second one, or should I just go right
can
into the
go-
second one and be totally fine?
you can go right into the second one and be just fine.
Maybe I'll play it, man. I have my original Xbox hooked up right over there, and even though I could probably pop that disc into a Series X and play it on there, I think that I would want to play it the way that it was intended to be played. So maybe I will do that.
The story was great. Then we had a lot of versions. We had Silent Hill 3 and the Silent Hill The Room and then Silent Hill Downpour. So the Silent Hill games have been around for a while, but yeah, Silent Hill is definitely like right under Resident Evil for me. And then for GameCube we had Eternal Darkness. You remember Eternal Darkness?
Yo, Eternal Darkness was awesome, man. Like,
Eternal Darkness made me mad. That's what it did.
I want to mention one thing. Another person brought this up recently, her name is Kat Bailey. She's been in the industry for a long time. She wrote for different websites and stuff like that. She's actually at IGN now. She's a little bit older, but she's extremely knowledgeable about the industry. Like, the stuff she writes is great. So I don't want to say that I'm taking this directly from her, because I had the same opinion, but I'm going to share her opinion as well as mine, which is, if you don't remember, the GameCube was not a beloved console the way it is today. People like talk trash about the GameCube all the time during the PS2 and Xbox era. The Xbox was the most powerful console, but the PS2 was the most popular console. And then you got the GameCube off doing its own thing in a corner somewhere that only a fraction of the people were paying attention to. Eternal Darkness was a game that made everybody truly proud to own a GameCube. Like, look, we have a mature rated, adult, crazy, like off the wall, like something Kojima would make game on the GameCube, and it's exclusive to this console. So Kat Bailey made that point. I'm just repeating it, that nobody liked the GameCube back then as much as people love the GameCube today. It was a very weird thing. But Eternal Darkness was something everybody that owned a GameCube was completely proud of.
Oh man, Eternal Darkness is, like I said, it made me mad. Because for people who don't know, Eternal Darkness played with your head.
Yes, it did.
And I remember breaking my GameCube controller because while I'm playing Eternal Darkness, and you get to a point in the game, and all of a sudden it says your files has been corrupted and it erases everything. And I was so mad, I smashed my controller, not knowing the game messes with your head, and that was part of the game. So then I had to go out and buy another GameCube controller.
Yeah, it would do things like that, because the main character of the game, like, she was going through this horror thing, but it was like a psychological game. It was like trying to explain to you, like, this person's losing their mind, like they don't know what's real and what's not. So when it showed you that on screen, even though it seemed real to you, it was just like, no, it's not real.
Yeah, so so Eternal Darkness is definitely one everybody that's into the survival horror type of games should play. I highly recommend it. I don't know how it holds up today because I haven't played it in a while.
I haven't played in a while either, but didn't it tell you also, like, it would tell you like your controller's unplugged and it would be plugged in?
Yes.
You're like, what is what
is going? Yeah, what is going on? It would do things like that you kind of second guess yourself. And like I said, it wound up costing me a GameCube controller, but
luckily I had read about the memory card thing specifically before I played the game. So when I got to that point, I was like, all right, I know what this is. Because I would have done the same thing that you did, Wes. Like, the controller thing got me, but not the memory card, man. The memory card I was prepared for.
Oh man, because I was so mad. I think all my save files were gone for like all the other GameCube games. I was so mad. Yeah. Eternal Darkness. And then we had Condemned for the 360.
Oh, that game was so
Criminal
good.
Origins. That was so scary.
It was probably my favorite launch title on the Xbox 360.
It was good, man. First person survival horror. It had a lot of supernatural elements in it, but there was one part in particular that really scared me. Was the whole, you're in a department store, an abandoned department store, and as you're walking, there's mannequins all over the place. And
this was my favorite part too.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden these mannequins start to, when you turn around, they start to move closer towards you. and it gets to a point where you have to jump down this hole and all the mannequins are looking at you, and that was so scary.
It wasn't a hole. It was a staircase.
Wasn't a hole? Was it a staircase?
It was a staircase.
I thought it was a hole.
No, because this is like, I remember this so vividly. You are walking through all these mannequins, and like you're like anticipating it the whole time. And I think I want to say that this thing was like multiple stories. Like you're walking through these mannequins for like a while. So you go from being frightened, like, oh, something's going to jump out of these mannequins at any point. And they take you such a long walk down through all these mannequins constantly that by the time they actually start to scare you, you're not ready for it because you've walked through like 1,000 mannequins at that point.
Right, because from what I remember, they don't move if you're looking at them.
Yeah, like nothing happens until you get to where the staircase is, and then the staircase like goes over. This was my favorite part in the game because I actually hurt myself in real life while playing this part of the game, and it like blew my mind because I had an Xbox 360. This was when like HD TVs were like a big thing, and I had a computer. I bought the DVI cable that would attach to it, or it was something like that. It would attach to my computer. So I had a computer cable that was going to my monitor, which was way better than my TV at the time. So this was like the most realistic way I could play the game. And you're walking through the mannequins and you're anticipating this thing happening. And then when you walk over to where this staircase is, there's like stairs to your right that lead like, like a square, like going down like this. And I was so, you're paranoid the whole time. Like I'm sure there's going to be something coming out of these friggin' mannequins, and there's nothing the whole time. You look over the staircase, and as soon as you get next to the staircase to make sure there's nothing down there, a monster jumps out at your face, and I cut my hand underneath my keyboard that was on my computer, and I was like bleeding all over the place. Like, oh my god, this game is amazing! As I'm standing there like holding my hand.
Oh yeah. Then they came out with the second one, and not as good as the first, but the first one will always hold a spot. That was so good. So good. I think it was it was so underrated.
It was. And Bloodshot was the second one. It was still a good game, but you're right. The first one was something truly special, and I can't believe that more people didn't buy it. It was published by Sega.
Yes, it was. Then we got, not so much on the scary side, but we got Splatterhouse, which is a classic. Because it was a ripoff of Jason from Friday the 13th.
Now, which Splatterhouse are you talking about? The remake, or are you talking about the original?
The original. See, I didn't do the remake, and we talked about this once before on another video, and I have it. I haven't played it because I know at some point you unlock the original. But yeah, I like the regular original one is what I remember playing. For TurboGrafx. And just going through, it was like bloody, and it was Splatterhouse. But no, everybody says I should play the new one. You said I should play the new one. So eventually I'll play the new one.
I need to get the new one. This is another thing we talked about before where it was like, it was like $15 at GameStop and I passed it up and I should have bought it then. Now the game's like, I think the game's like $60 or $70 or something like that if you get a complete in-box copy.
Yeah. And then, and then it kind of gets from like the scariness to other games that have horror elements, like Left 4 Dead. I love Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. It's just multiplayer horde fest. Running, trying to complete the levels, going through town, and just get hordes of zombies and monsters, and it was so much fun. One of my favorites, and I can't wait until the spiritual successor, Back 4 Blood, comes out in the next month or two, because I'm super stoked about that one.
Did you have a chance to hop into the beta they did? I think the beta was in like maybe August or something, or like the end of July.
I didn't. I missed it.
I didn't play it either, but I heard it was like okay. Like it felt like Left 4 Dead, but there was like some like hiccups and stuff. But I mean, who knows? By the time the game comes out, maybe they'll clean all that stuff up.
I love Left 4 Dead, and I was so excited when Evolve came out because they were like, oh, from people that did Left 4 Dead, and I was like, bet I got Left 4 Dead with dinosaurs. Oh, okay. And I'm like, wait, what is this?
Yeah, a lot of people got burned on that game. That game had a lot of hype around it, and like nobody liked that game when it came out, unfortunately.
No, it was it was what it was. It's still on my shelf, but and that's where it'll stay. Um, but then when you go back to the horror stuff, then you got Dead Space. Dead Space was scary, man. Dead Space was scary. You never played it. Oh no.
Another black eye on my list of horror games that I never played was I never touched Dead Space. You know what's sad? My friend gave me a copy. Neo, I love you, man. I just never got around to playing it, dude. I had other stuff I was playing at the time. I think I was like, when he gave me that game, I was probably like severely into Gears of War because I had like an obsession of Gears of War for like a number of years. And then he gave me Dead Space. Like, oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm gonna check it out. And then I just kept playing Gears of War.
No, man.
But I have Dead Space 1, 2, and 3 now.
Yeah, Dead Space 1 was
time.
Dead Space 1 was scary. You know, it had that alien vibe to it because you're on this ship, you know, and you're roaming these dark halls by yourself, and then these creatures are all over the place. You don't know what's going to jump out. You know, you can get customize and get these new weapons, and to kind of help you. It's extremely bloody, and it was extremely scary. And then after you play the first one, then the second one and third one, not so much. But for the very first game, the very first Dead Space is definitely on one of my lists. Is like one of like my favorite horror type games.
Well, if you didn't know, they just announced recently they're remaking it, so I may wait until the remake comes out to check it out. But I mean, I'm definitely interested. I like horror games, and the fact that you use a plasma cutter sounds incredible.
Yeah.
So I think I'll check out the remake when it comes out. But I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and play the original. I don't know. It is Halloween, so like I'm definitely like in the spirit right now of like watching horror movies and stuff. So I might not be able to wait. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I mentioned Alien, and the next game on my list is Alien Isolation for Xbox One. Now, a lot of people gave that game like horrible reviews. A lot of people trashed it. I loved it. It was not only did it look great, it played great. It gave you that sense of fear, because if you've seen any of, like, especially the original Alien movie, and you're on, again, kind of like Dead Space, on this space station, and at some point you encounter the alien and you don't know when he is going to pop out. You can hide. When you play it on the harder settings, he can detect you breathing. So if you're trying to hold your breath and hide in like a locker, and he can sense you, he can smell you. So that fear of this alien finding you was intense. It was intense. If Alien Isolation, I tell everybody they need to play it.
That game did get some good reviews too. Like I don't watch like all the reviews for it, but it definitely got some, like, some people really, really love that game. Obviously, you're one of them.
Oh, I thought it was so good. It was so good. So yeah, and then we got Blood Omen, the Blood Omen series for regular PlayStation, and then they crossed over to PlayStation 2.
Legacy of Kain.
You had Legacy of Kain, but the original Blood Omen it's a vampire story. Which was a over the top it was like a 3/4 view game, and then they kind of redid it because you had, I want to say his name is Azrael or Raziel, but you had Legacy of Kain, which kind of was a little bit more on the action side, but then they kind of brought back Kain, who was the vampire, and it's more, again, on the action side, not really that scary, but it is a vampire, and it had vampire elements, and you do have to feed. There were some instances where you did have to feed.
It had like horror light elements.
Yeah, definitely. And then the last two titles, which one is like, these two games are probably one of my all-time favorite. If I have to pick a top 10 list, is Bioshock.
Nice.
Love Bioshock. Bioshock. Would I classify it as horror? No, but it definitely had some horror elements.
Certainly straddles the line.
It did, because you had, the splicers, and, you would see, I remember in one particular section, you would see a shadow of a twisted individual, and then when you turn the corner, it's no longer there. It had a lot of how can I describe them? They were experimental humans that had these special powers, but they were crazy. And then you had the big daddies running around who were intimidating.
Yes, they were.
The story was fantastic. Again, it wasn't a horror game per se, but it did had some horror overtones, if we can count that.
Agreed.
And then my last one was The Last of Us 1 and 2.
Oh man,
so good, so good.
I'm glad you mentioned 2 because there's a lot of backlash on 2 that people didn't like 2. I don't know what the hell they saw, but I mean, those 2 games are like so high up on my list of like best games of all time, like easily in the top 20, probably in the top 10, maybe in the top 5, both of them, especially the first one.
Oh, the first one, without a doubt. First one was so good, and I may be wrong, but I think the thing with the second one was, and then if this is going to be spoilers for anybody who's not played it yet, but you don't, in the first one, you grow attached to Joel,
Mm-hmm.
and Ellie. The second one, you don't really get a whole lot of time with Joel. And
there was a reason for that, though.
Right. So you lose that emotional attachment you had. And I think a lot of people didn't like that.
So Neil Druckmann, if you guys didn't know, he was like the writer, and I think he was the director of the game or executive producer. But the main point is he was the writer, a writer on both of the games, 1 and 2. And he said if you paid attention to what he said, you would kind of understand what the game is about ahead of time. He said the first game was about love, which was clear if you played that game, and the second game is about hate, which is clear if you played all the way through the second one of that game. Like they are very 2 different games, but they are both like extremely well written and well thought out. And I mean, I don't understand people who don't like The Last of Us Part 2.
Oh, it was still a good game. Granted, you didn't play as the character the whole game that you wanted, but it was well written from beginning to end, well acted, graphics were good. Granted, you play as these creatures, so they weren't zombies, but so that definitely had a lot of horror overtone.
There was a parasite that basically found these are real things. They're called in real life. There's a name for them though. I want to say they're called centipods, but I know that's not right. But there's a parasite in real life, and what they do is they take over ants. They literally go in. It's a parasite that gets inside of ants, gets inside of their brain, controls the ant to tell them where to die at, kills the ant, and then a spore grows from its head. And that's how they came up with the idea for the game. It's a real life thing.
Huh. Okay.
And that's what those things are based off of. No, they're not zombies, and it's based off of these spores and this parasite, but they look and they kind of like act like zombies that run.
They do. That run.
But they look like flowers and different stuff because they come from spores.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's super, like, honestly, forget the games for 2 seconds. Go online and like learn about whatever creature that's called. It is fascinating. It's unbelievable that actually exists in real life.
Okay. I was today years old when I learned about the origin of The Last of Us.
Dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it makes the game so much better because it's like it's one step away from happening to humans if it can already happen to ants.
Wow. So yeah, so that's my list, man, of like my favorite horror / scary games. So I'm really curious to see yours.